Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Starlight Beacon Transmissions. My name is Eric Mitchell, and today we've got something a little different. We're sitting down and we're talking with Sharon and Royal from Farpoint, which is an upcoming convention happening February 7th through 9th in Pikesville, Maryland at the Doubletree by Hilton. I have the awesome opportunity to sit down and talk with Sharon and Royal here and learn about Farpoint and all of the amazing things that this convention does, especially when it comes to charity as well. So for those of you that don't know what Farpoint is, we'll get to that in a second, but I would love for our guests to introduce themselves. We'll start with Sharon and then we'll go with Royal.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Sharon Van Blarkum. I am the convention chair for Farpoint Convention, and I am very happy to be here with Eric again.
It's great to have you back. It's been fun catching up with you throughout the year.
Yeah.
As we've gotten closer. And Royal, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Royal White. I am the programming manager for the convention, handling all of the guest invitations and setting up the schedule for all the activities that they're going to be engaging in.
Nice. Very, very cool. So just I would love to know at first, like how both of you got involved with Farpoint, and then a little bit about the convention, and then if Royal, if you want to start, and then we'll go with Sharon.
So I'm a long time science fiction Star Trek fan, going way back to original World Cons in the late 70s. I actually got started in Star Trek at ClipperCon before it actually became Farpoint back in October Trek and ClipperCon a long time ago. So I've been friends with many of the folks over the years, for many years. And so I've been going to conventions, both science fiction and Star Trek, for many years now.
Very cool. Very cool. Sharon.
Well, just to finish Royal's story, we asked him almost 2 years ago, hey, you want to be our programming chair? And he didn't, to his credit, he didn't think twice. To his wife's horror, he didn't think twice. And said yes. I started going to conventions right about that time too. I went to my first convention like mid 80s. And that's when I found out about the Baltimore conventions, and I went and I started helping, and being the sucker / people pleaser that I am, they said, hey, you want to do more than help? And I said, sure. So I went from helper to staff member to department chair. I used to have Royal's job way back in the day. Wow. And then I became con chair, and no one else wants my job. So I might be con chair for life.
Well, I just want to say that you both do an amazing job with your positions in Farpoint. Seriously, it takes a village, and I mean everybody on that team is just incredible with putting on this convention. So thank you for doing that. So let's talk a little bit about Farpoint. We did mention that it was ClipperCon beforehand. Mm-hmm. How did Farpoint come to be?
Well, yeah. Once upon a time, there were the original Star Trek conventions up in New York City, and a group of fans from Baltimore went up, of course, and enjoyed it and loved it, and decided to bring the concept down to the Baltimore area. And that's what started with it. Originally started with Shore Leave, who is one of our partner cons in the area. They started, I think 46, 47, 48 years ago, a long time ago. And apologies to Shore Leave if I'm making them older than they are. and then some of the staff members working at Shore Leave decided that they wanted to do a second con in the area at another part of the year. And so that is when ClipperCon was born. And ClipperCon ran for about 4 years. I can't remember. It was a little before my time, and then morphed into October Trek, which ran for a very successful 3 years. And then October Trek, because the woman, the late Sandy Zier Tytler, who just one of the legends of East Coast Star Trek fandom, decided that she could no longer be the financial backer for October Trek and run it, then much of the team said, no, we'd like to do it. And Steve Wilson and Renee Wilson led that change over from October Trek to Farpoint. And we've been Farpoint ever since. This will be our 32nd year.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. That's awesome. I mean, 32 years. I mean, that's an accomplishment. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and it's fascinating just the chain of conventions. It just goes down through history
Yeah.
from in pop culture history, from the original Star Trek conventions in the 70s, which became legend because back in the 70s, it literally was, hey gang, let's put on a show.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. That is true. And Royal, you said that you've been with Farpoint pretty much since the beginning as well, but with attending and everything.
Yes,
That's
yes.
awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
absolutely. I've had different roles at different times at Farpoint. I've worked on the art show. I've worked in the masquerade. You know, you get to learn a lot of different things. You have the opportunity to work with a lot of great people, do a lot of very interesting things. So it's a great experience. And you know, anybody who's interested in getting involved, we're happy to have helpers.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And when you arrive at Farpoint, our information desk is also where our volunteers can stop, or potential volunteers can stop by and ask, hey, what can I do? We'll, anything from an hour of your time to on up. It's a great time. And that is how you meet a lot of people.
Yeah. And I just want to say, like, the registration desk people are just so friendly and so nice when you come in, and everyone has been so welcoming as well, or is welcoming as well. Like when it comes to the convention, like you really do feel at home there, and you do feel part of a big family. Um, so I was looking at the guest list for Farpoint this year. We had Michelle Forbes, but unfortunately, it looks like she had to cancel due to
To illness, yes.
yes. So how did we get Rob Kaczynski?
We rolled that over in about a day. We were lucky enough that the same agent who represents Michelle represents Rob as well. And she suggested him and a couple of other names from her roster as good potential replacements. And we were able to make the deal with Rob work. And luckily, because our goal was to have someone in place as quick as possible. So it's unfortunate whenever you have to announce the cancellation of a guest, especially someone as iconic as Michelle Forbes, because she hardly ever does conventions. And so it was a very sad moment when we got that phone call. But we, then had a moment of sadness and then turned around and started focusing on let's move forward. Let's find a new replacement guest. And Rob is very popular from his time on Pacific Rim.
Yeah.
He, of course, had that very memorable role on Pacific Rim. People who follow British TV know him from EastEnders. He was on True Blood. And now, of course, he's part of the Star Trek family in Section 31.
Yeah, I also loved him in the Warcraft movie. Like
Yes.
I love that movie. I know.
No.
I know it wasn't as well received, but I love that movie.
From what I haven't seen it yet, I will admit I might have to go watch it now. But from what I understand, it was a very good depiction of the world of Warcraft, which might be why people coming in who haven't, been Warcraft fans might have wondered what am I watching? Royal, did you see it?
I did see the Warcraft movie. It was great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Kaczynski did a great job.
Yeah. I think he played Duratan in that movie, I believe. I thought he played one of the orcs from what I remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I started watching a little bit of Section 31, and he's a highlight of that movie. He is a highlight of that movie.
He's a fun character for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but just seeing on social media, he's been posting and sharing some, photos of the development of his costume and some of the photo tests and everything. And his costume is insane.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. When it comes to the guests, what's it like programming for all of those guests, Royal?
It's a challenge. We have over 100, individuals that are coming to the convention. We've got, a couple of dozen authors. There's a very strong writing community associated with Farpoint. Many writers are published, well-known authors, whether it's Star Trek, science fiction, or just, other genres. And so there's a lot to listen to and learn. The panels talk about the different types of writing techniques and helping to learn and network and understand how to do writing and be better writing. So if you're an interested writer, this is a place to come and hear a lot of good things. And then we've got multiple tracks, including the track associated with cosplay. We've got professional cosplayers and costumers that go back decades. We have a wonderful masquerade as well as a terrific panels that are very topical and very interesting. Everything from genre. Demanda Martini is one of our keynote cosplayers who's going to be participating. But we have a lot of very talented cosplayers who are going to be talking and showing and helping people understand cosplay and costuming. And then on the live side, we've got some great performers that are coming in. We do have some folks who are going to be doing some comedy shows, and this is more adult comedy and a lot of genre adult comedy. So you get to hear some very interesting, colorful Star Trek and sci-fi related jokes. We also have a strong science track. We have scientists that are current and ex-NASA and physicists and paleontologists. So there's going to be a lot of talk about a lot of different topics that are very current, topical. In fact, we do have one of our big topics is the AI mainstreaming. With an AI almost at everybody's fingertips, from computers to handheld phones, AI is now a part of our life. So what does that mean? How does the world change? How do we live differently? Lots of different topics, lots of different guests. So scheduling, if you've ever heard of, scheduling like a herd of cats, this is like a swarm of cats. It is challenging, and there's a lot of change that can happen, just like with Michelle Forbes, and finding guests and moving people around based on their availability and when they're arriving, when they're leaving, what their interests are. We try to play all of that in. So it really is a convention that's designed around the guests who love it and around the people who want to participate and hear what's being talked about. A lot of panels, it's interaction with the audience. You just don't sit and listen to people talk. It's a lot of interaction and sharing opinions and learning and understanding. So it's a real community and a family, like you said.
Indeed.
All right, and we're back. We had some technical difficulties here on my end for a few seconds, but yeah, that's really cool. One of my favorite things. I'm a huge reader. Like, I am a huge reader. So seeing all of the authors coming in and talking about their various passion projects and everything, it's really cool, and I absolutely love that. So. I love that. I know sometimes you do get, I mean, you get a lot of science programming, which I think is really cool too, as STEM is a big thing right now with
Absolutely.
yeah, and I love that you incorporate that not only into the programming for the adults, but you do a lot of it with the children's programming as well, which I think is
Yes.
really cool.
Well,
Um,
that's kind of one of the goals of the Farpoint Foundation, which is the nonprofit that sponsors Farpoint, because the mission is to encourage people in their own creativity, whether they are doing it as a hobby. Some people, of course, many people will, of course, create in many different media just as a stress relief, and because they are, a lot of people have told me, oh, I'm just driven to make things. But we also want to provide people who do it as a hobby, because even if you're just doing it as a hobby, you want to do it as good as you can.
mhm.
And then there's other people who want to work their way up the ladder and learn about how to take what they like to do and turn it into something that could be a way to make a living and a career. And that's why our partnership with Artway Alliance has been so strong and helpful, because that is their mission as well in the field of 2 and 3D art disciplines, from everything from drawing a comic, painting something for someone's wall, 3D animation, all the way on up. And they every year they come and they present a slate of classes for it's advertised for children, but it really is geared for all ages, because they'll teach anyone who wants to sit and learn.
That's awesome. And I've actually sat in on a couple of their panels, like through various conventions, and it's really cool to see.
Yeah.
Not
They're
only
very hands-on in their workshops, which is really interesting, and they're just great folks, all of them. I haven't met and it's a whole network of artists. So from one year to the next, sometimes you don't know who's going to show up, because until we get the names for the badges, of course.
It's like, oh, they're showing up. That's awesome.
Yeah. No, but a lot of it depends upon the demand as well, because we try and find out what kind of classes do people want to see, and they don't want to repeat the same topics too many times, because there's other things that people are also interested in.
Yeah. And that's another thing too. Like when you look at like just like the science fiction and the fantasy programming as well, like all of those panels are led by fans, which I think is really cool. Yeah, occasionally you might get a guest on there that did like help on that, but for the most part it's a lot of fans. And I think that is one of the beautiful things about this convention, is that this is for fans by the fans. Like, this is truly, come on in, let's hang out for a weekend and let's just geek out about what you want to geek out about.
Yeah. And that's our mission. Our mission is to celebrate fandom.
Yeah.
And it's very much fun when one of our guests who has developed a level of renown is also just a big old fan. For example, most of our writers are fans at multiple different levels of multiple different things. Yes. Peter David, he's written for Marvel. He's written all over the place. He's unfortunately not going to be able to be with us this year because of his. If you follow him online, he's been having, unfortunately, some health issues. But he would always come. And of course, now his wife is coming as well. She came with him. She's also coming. And she brings her puppetry with her. And Keith DeCandido and Bob Greenberger are just, prolific writers in all kinds of disciplines. I can't even talk. And Bonnie Gordon, who's coming this year, is doing a voice acting workshop on Royal Saturday or Sunday.
The workshop is going to be on Saturday.
That's what I thought. And it, it's open to anyone who's done voice work or is interested in doing voice work. And she, of course, is a very well-known professional voice actor. And so it's a chance, to pick the brain of someone who's doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. I've met Bonnie before. She's awesome. She's so cool. And then I love that, with us being a Star Wars podcast, branching into other fandoms. I love that you got Matthew Wood and Helen Sadler this year as well. That's huge. Like, how can you not want to walk up to Matthew Wood and just say hello there? But I'm pretty sure he hears it all the time now. As General Grievous. And Helen Sadler, I loved her so much in Bad Batch. Like, she was just so good in that show.
Oh, that was a fabulous show.
Oh yes, yes. And she was also Jyn Erso. I totally forgot that she was Jyn in Battlefront. I'm looking at your website, just keeping track of all your guests right now, because there's so many guests between the literary and the scientific and everything. But yeah, how did you all settle upon Matthew and Helen and Bonnie as the other guests?
Well, it's a combination of things. A lot of it is who's interested, who's available, who fits the budget. It's usually a combination of that. But we always look for guests who are not, I don't want to say ordinarily on the circuit, but kind of in some ways who have not done as many convention events, because a lot of times it's because they're very, very busy. And in many instances, it's because some of them don't like to do large conventions. They prefer smaller ones. And so we, being a smaller convention, we do have our niche. And in some instances, someone just suggests someone. I think if I remember correctly, you were one of the first people who said, look at these voice actors from the Star Wars universe.
I was going to say the committee has a say in, suggesting things, and Star Wars is represented. Let's put it that way.
Well, it's important. It's important because there are guests that, say Royal might know of that would be really cool, that it's not a show I follow or a movie discipline that I'm interested in. And so I wouldn't know this person, but then you look at their credentials and you realize, oh my goodness, this person would be fabulous for us. Yeah. And because this isn't just, each one of our conventions. It is a convention for everyone. So you do look for guests that are unusual and that are friendly, who are interested in, doing what we do, because our celebrity guests are actors, they are creators, they are artists, and we want to be able to encourage other people, again, by listening and talking to people who are already doing it. That's one of the things our moderator team is working on their list of questions, because they do want to include questions during the onstage talks about, how they got where they are, what their craft, being, for example, Matthew Wood, what's involved with being a sound editor? How do you get training and information and knowledge and experience to become a sound editor? Because I know what sound editors are, but I don't know how they become a sound editor myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's true too. I mean, and he's part of an Oscar-winning team with sound design too, with Skywalker Sound, which I think is awesome. I wanted to shift gears here and talk about the different charities that you have with Farpoint Foundation as well, and I would love to hear from both of you about those. Especially the Julian Fleming Memorial Fund, which I think is just every year you all raise so much money for that fund, and it's just man, it's that story gets me every single time. Just hearing about that and just seeing the generosity within the community. I would just love to hear more about the organizations, especially that and Artway Alliance, and then more about the Farpoint Foundation and what Farpoint Foundation does, other than putting on a con.
Julian Fleming Memorial Fund, for people who don't know the backstory, was founded about 12 years ago, if I remember correctly now, by a local Star Trek club from Northern Virginia. And they knew of the Fleming family, who had a very sick young child, 4 or 5 years old, Julian. And as we all know, in this day and age, insurance can only carry you so far when you have a very serious critical illness. And he was suffering from cancer. And the community, including the Star Trek Club, just banded together to help him. And the support from the community helped the family, just such a horrible experience, just helped them go through it and make it through it. And then when Julian finally did pass, the club said, hey, we would love to memorialize Julian. This was like the first time they had done something like this, and they saw the need. And there's other families out there with terminally and chronically ill children who need support. And so they got permission from the family to use his name and become a 501c3. And every year they fundraise at Farpoint and Shore Leave and other local events. and they give grants throughout the year to families in need. It's a wonderful organization.
Definitely.
And a lot of the stuff that you all auction off is fantastic as well, whether it be um sit down dinners or just sit down meet and greets with the guests. You also had a costume from a Shakespeare play a couple
Mhm.
of years
Yeah.
ago. That was incredible, and that went for an insane amount of money too. Just that was incredible. My favorite is still the Attack of the Clones lunchbox that you all auctioned off a couple of years ago. That um, Renfield was just like, you can have Hayden Christensen in your living room, just a tiny little Hayden Christensen in your living room. Um, and then Cal Dodd with the X-Men stuff last
Mhm.
year as
Yeah.
well. That was fantastic.
Mm.
And then I'm looking at Artway Alliance, and them providing these art programs is huge as well, because I think, especially in this day and age, we need art more than ever now.
Yeah.
When it comes to that,
Mm.
and Farpoint Foundation. So you all put on the convention, and what else do you do as a 501c3, if I may
Yeah.
ask?
Well, we became a 501c3 within the last 5 years. So in a lot of ways, we're still getting our legs under us as a 501c3. The convention is our main level of outreach, but we are developing plans. Right now, of course, we also consult and are a presence with Artway Alliance, and we work with them to sponsor additional programs of theirs throughout the year. And we're also looking to expand that some more with the local library systems in Maryland, because a lot of them put their own Comic Cons on.
Yeah.
And we've been approached by them by different counties a couple of times asking for advice on what they can do. And we're learning the neighborhood, so to speak, because the arts in general there's a lot of foundations and charities that support the arts in general, but
Mhm.
the specific arts relate as in the discipline of science fiction, comics, fantasy, anime, and horror are not as well represented. A lot of times, an arts organization that's supporting the arts and providing grant money, they almost don't have a place for
Mhm.
artists and performers in in our genres.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of establishing that this is a valid artistic discipline.
Mhm.
And we're looking at a lot of what Balticon has done so well for so many years, because they have been a 501c3 from their conception as the Baltimore Science Fiction Society. And it's been a fascinating process, just learning where the need is and wanting to fill it and making our presence known as a resource
Mhm.
to artists, because that's one of the reasons that Farpoint Convention and Royal is probably very thankful that we don't have more celebrities to schedule, because scheduling the celebrities can be the most
Yeah.
complicated part of it.
Yep.
But we reserve that space in our convention venue to showcase local artists and local performers, because this is how they get their own word out, by being
Yeah.
able to make appearances and let people know they're out there, and hopefully fans will find some new artist or performer to support or author to read, and um, and the author or actor or performer will get new fans to follow
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Um, so you mentioned Royal scheduling all the guests and everything. What is that like, juggling not only like the Q&A panels, but the autograph sessions and the photo ops and all of that? Like, what is that like?
We use a gigantic Google sheet to put everything together. And then we have a database so that we know everybody and everywhere everybody's going to be at any given time. And so we still run into conflicts all the time and have to work with the different individuals, and we have to say, can we switch you and move these around, and then sometimes things happen. Guests may come in late, guests may have to leave early, guests may have an issue and not be able to participate in things. So as we go through the convention, one of the things to keep in mind is we have an online scheduling program that gets updated real time as things happen. So everyone should definitely go out and track that, especially starting Friday. We definitely want you to know where to go and when to go as things
Yeah.
change as they happen. So it is a moving target, constantly a moving target.
Yeah, because my wife and I were talking. We're like, well, how do they schedule breaks for the actors to like eat lunch or dinner or what have you?
Oh yeah,
Because
we're
like,
doing all of that.
oh
Yep,
yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
like
Well,
that's crazy.
we've had some guests come to us for the first time and look at their personalized schedule and just be shocked. I have a lunch break. I have like an actual scheduled lunch break, and it's kind of surprising to us because it's yeah, you're a human being. You have to
Mhm.
go eat. You have to eat. You have to take a break. You have to use the bathroom. You have these human needs, and in order to be, the good guests they want to be, we have to
Mhm.
give them time
Oh yeah.
to
I
to do those recharge moments.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that I've noticed. Like I've been to both big and small conventions, and like walking the show floor of AwesomeCon and seeing just the lines of people just like in these guests lines. I'm thinking, yeah, okay, like it's cool that they've generated this popularity. However, what if they need to go to the bathroom? Like, what if they do need to go and eat lunch? And it's just crazy, especially with the photo ops. Like at bigger conventions, you just have one by one by one by one, and I get it. Like they have to get as many people through as possible, but um yeah, I was just curious about how that all works and everything, and I love that a lot of your guests are like, okay, cool, yeah, I'll take a lunch break. Like this is like, this to me
Yeah.
is cool. um I wanted to also shift gears again and talk about fandom because we're all fans here.
Mhm.
A lot of members of my community have not really, or in our community, haven't really like gone into Star Trek, and they were asking me, um, well, ask them what they think is like, well, what their favorite Trek is and what a good entry point into Trek is, and all of that. And I would love to hear from both of you, like what your other fandoms are besides Star Trek and as well. But let's start with the Star Trek question first. And Royal, I would love to hear from you about your first Star Trek and what your favorite Trek is and what you think the best entry point is.
So I grew up on TOS, the original
Okay.
series. It's like so many of us have. I fell in love with the Next Generation, so
Mhm.
that has the sweetest spot. But the new things that are coming out, especially Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks, I'm really, really loving how well they're doing good stuff.
Mhm.
Good materials, good stories, and enjoyable things to watch and interact with. So
Mhm.
I mean, it's a great way to get into it. A lot of things, depending on your demographics, can really help. On the children's side, Prodigy is fantastic. But if you really are interested more in the science side of things, then going into things like Strange New Worlds, which is current, a lot more current, and then going back and watching things as they go back, because the stuff today has great production values, great writing, great
Mhm.
acting, great special effects, and so it's much more today modern, grabbing you. Like all of the Star Wars, set the
Yeah.
pace for everything. So that's kind of how I would say get into it, and that's how I got into it. But I've watched all Star Trek. I've almost watched all genre that's out there, sci-fi and fantasy. Everything from the Game of Thrones side of things all the way to Star Trek, Star Wars, Stargate.
Yes.
Doctor Who. I'm a big British sci-fi fan as well. So I'm an equal opportunity sci-fi fan, and my wife will even say you watch stuff that's terrible sometimes.
I was sitting down and I was watching Babylon 5 one day, and my wife came in and she was like, "What are you watching?" I'm like, "It's Babylon 5." Like, she's like, "What is this?"
Not terrible, not terrible
No,
in my opinion.
Yeah.
no,
Well, I
it's
agree.
not. It
No.
is fantastic. It's just like she was looking at some of the ships like in the early
Ah,
episodes.
yeah,
And
yeah,
she's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
"That is terrible."
Yeah.
Um, Sharon, go ahead.
Oh, well, my first exposure to these kind of science fiction or science fiction adjacent um, programming and activity started when I was 7 years old. My aunt was watching my sister and myself,
Mm,
and my cousin was a huge, huge Dark Shadows fan.
mm,
So he would rush us home from, and he was in charge of walking us home from elementary school. He would rush us home from school and we would usually land at home in time to watch the second half of Dark Shadows, which at 7 years old at times scared the bejesus out of me.
mm.
And but then on our local channel, following Dark Shadows was Speed Racer and
Nice.
Kimba the White Lion. And
Yes.
so that's when my little 7-year-old mind started just blowing and saying, "What is this?" Because of course, both of those shows are examples of some of the earlier anime from Japan that came in to the country, and so I was just fascinated by the animation styles, and I just said, and of course at that time, being littler, there weren't as many TV stations, but I started looking around saying, what else is out there that's kind of fun? And I stumbled across Lost in Space,
Yeah.
and that's when I stumbled across Star Trek, the original series, which I found out they were showing Star Trek, the original series on rerun loops.
Mm.
And so I started watching that and I liked it. And then, yeah, I was with Royal. I really became cemented when Star Trek: The Next Generation came out.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of fans were like, "What are they doing? How dare they desecrate our Star Trek?" But I'm a little bit more accepting as a person. Like, okay, it's their story. Let's see what story they're
Yeah,
going to tell.
yeah.
And I just found it fascinating. And from there, and of course, I was already interested on the literary side. I started reading Isaac Asimov when I was in high school, and I read all the Dune stuff
Mhm.
and varying opinions of the stuff from the original stuff from Frank Herbert as into the later stuff, but that's another thing. But I read a lot. My son got me into Game of Thrones.
That's
He
awesome.
said, "Mom, you got to see this." And my son is a huge comic book nerd, so I've learned a lot from him in that line. So I'm a pretty much an ecumenical fan, and we try to be that at Farpoint.
Yeah,
We started out as a Star Trek convention because back 32 some years ago, that was what the conventions were about. Star Trek was pretty much at that point the only game in town. But then, as the science fiction and fiction's popularity as a subject for television and movies became more popular, people started asking for content for other shows, other movies, and other books. And so we started, it's like, well, then we will oblige.
yeah.
And so from there, we moved into, if the fans like it and they want to talk about it, or they want to see something about it, we'll do our best to make it happen.
That's awesome. For me, I my mom showed me reruns of TOS as well, like when I was a kid.
Mhm.
I watched a little bit of Next Generation, but for me, like Star Trek didn't really hit until Deep Space Nine for me.
Mm.
Like
That's a good show.
I just felt like that was the one for me. And then like I couldn't get into Voyager, and I know I'm a terrible fan for saying that, but I couldn't get into Voyager.
Deep Space. Well, it was such a an almost about face in some ways from Deep Space Nine. Deep Space
Yeah,
Nine was very heavy on the political
yeah,
intrigue and those kind of emotional and traumatic connections that come from the jockeying for power.
yeah,
And then Voyager went back to the more traditional, what is considered the more traditional Star Trek
yeah,
canon of exploration. And as those seasons went on, they did, because of just the they met and planets they visited, they did start exploring some of those topics as well. But yeah, a lot of people found that the changeover from Deep Space Nine to Voyager a little jarring, I think.
Yeah.
But for me, like the most underrated is Enterprise. Like Enterprise to me is the most underrated
Yeah,
Trek out there. Especially those final 2 seasons. Those final 2 seasons are just incredible.
they really were.
They were great.
Yeah. And I love that finale with the holodeck and Riker. I love that so much with him being the chef on the Enterprise.
Yeah. But then I adore John Billingsley as a person. He's a friend. So Enterprise always has a special place.
Yes. Yeah, and I thought the cast was just phenomenal. I thought the cast was great, and Scott Bakula as Archer was just fantastic. You all mentioned being heavy readers, enjoying science fiction and fantasy. What are some of your favorites? I would love to hear like what some of your favorite science fiction and fantasy novels are, and even just any novel, really.
So I kind of grew up on the trifecta of science fiction: Asimov, Heinlein, and Arthur C. Clarke. So those were my favorite authors. So the Rendezvous with Rama book was like one of my first introductions to real science fiction. When I was a teenager, so fell in love with those kinds of books. And then moving forward, as the years went by, I worked my way through all of the Heinlein and the Asimov books. So a lot of the masters in the science fiction world are the ones that I worked my way through. And then I did read a lot of the Star Wars books and some of the Star Trek books as well. So, but yes, and then of course, moving over onto the fantasy side, things like Game of Thrones and some of the other top fantasy books are also amongst my favorites. So,
yeah, Lord of the Rings is just
absolutely, absolutely, that's the pinnacle. The best movie ever made, I think, too.
Oh, I totally agree. Seriously, that trilogy is flawless. Like, yeah.
Well, just the depth of world building that went into that Tolkien put into Lord of the Rings is just astonishing when you think about it.
Right.
And when you look into it, I mean, in the back of my edition of Return of the King, it's got all of these appendices with a lot of the supporting materials and histories. And it's the stories that come out of that. I mean, they could do multiple more movies just out of these backstories.
That's why I love that Rings of Power is actually doing that. Like they're just taking from those. Yeah.
Well, that's what I enjoy about Rings of Power, because because I've done a little exploring in some of those histories, I recognize some of the threads, and I get kind of a kick out of that. It's like, I know where they got that from.
Nice. You mentioned Dune, Sharon. Like, what got you into Dune?
I picked it up because someone told me it's a classic science fiction book and you should read it. And I was about 12 years old.
Wow.
And I couldn't deal with it when I was 12 years old. I admit I could not do it. I asked for it for Christmas. I got that and a copy of Anne of Green Gables. Guess which one I liked better?
Dune.
But as I got a little older, I picked it up again because the cover is very interesting. Yeah. It's not a first edition, but it was a reproduction of the first edition that came from the Science Fiction Book Club. So it had the same cover on a reprint. It was very interesting cover. So I said, let me give this a try again. And I guess at that point I had matured enough to be able to follow the intricacy that Frank Herbert built into that. That's another universe with so much intense world building that just keeping everybody and everything straight. It's one of those ones I like. There's what I consider fast reads and slow reads, and it's a slow read because you really get a feel for everything. And at least the way I read, I stop and I'll ponder periodically. I mean, my husband swears I read like a maniac, but it's like, I'll go through it fast once, but then I'll go back and read it again. immediately to see what I missed, because I know
Yeah.
I always miss something.
Dune is daunting to get into at first
It
because of
is.
just there are so many books in that series.
Yes.
And I know, like, we were talking about or you mentioned the difference between Frank Herbert and what Brian and Kevin are doing right now,
Yeah.
and all of
Some of
that.
it's not bad. Some of it's
Yeah,
actually pretty good, but a couple of I think my problem with not problem, but my eyebrow raises when they started incorporating near the end where they were finishing everything up
yeah,
of the main story, where they started incorporating their creations
mm,
with the original timeline. I'm sitting there going, okay, this is interesting. But again, I don't I quibble, but I don't
yeah.
quibble to the point of throwing it out the window. I say,
Oh,
okay, I'll see where they're going. I'm gladly go along for the ride.
yeah.
And any movie, any TV show, any book. And again, my husband's the same sometimes as Royal's wife. Like, what are you watching? Because I stumbled across I'm still a huge Dark Shadows nerd. I've been to a couple of the Dark Shadows fan
Mm,
gatherings that they still have, and I stumbled across Roku channel actually streams whole
oh no.
seasons at a time.
Uh-huh.
And I stumbled across the first episode that Barnabas Collins ever appeared in.
Wow.
And so, of course, I immediately text Steve Wilson, who founded Farpoint and is now and is our current deputy, one of our deputy con chairs. I texted him immediately, saying, "Hey, the Barnabas episodes,"
That's
because I had never seen it. I had
yeah.
never seen it. By the time I first was shown Dark Shadows, Barnabas was already a thing. It was like about 2/3 of the way through the run, and Quentin Collins had made his appearance
Mhm.
as a ghost, and so that's how far along that was
Yeah.
before I found it. So to go back and see some of these old original episodes, I get the biggest kick out of it. I really do.
That's fantastic.
But then
Um,
I am the person who hunted down the original seasons of the Great British Bake Off online and straight to those too.
I love how as nerds just like go down these rabbit holes like as soon as we find something, we're just like, I need to know more. Like,
That's right.
Oh,
um, yeah,
Christmas specials. This
yeah,
year, I stumbled across an old Andy Williams Christmas show online, and I watched it. And it reminded me, because when I was a kid, that was when they were still doing those big celebrity family Christmas shows. And so I went down that rabbit hole. I said, well, let's see some other Andy Williams. And then I landed on Bing Crosby, and even watched a Dean Martin
Wow.
and a Perry Como. Perry was a little too slow for me, but then I stumbled across Perry Como, and just I went down that rabbit hole. And then of course the classic Judy Garland.
yeah.
Mm.
Judy Garland family Christmas show. It was great. It was a great, fascinating, wonderful, slight train wreck. It doesn't have some train wreck qualities to it, but yeah, I will nerd out over the craziest things my kids think.
That's awesome though. Like, and that's what it's all about. Now, Royal, you mentioned reading Star Wars books, and I have to ask. Well, now that it's legends and canon, like we have to, we have to. I'm not going to separate, like, be like, oh, well, you have to, like, no. What is your favorite, like, old EU novel? Like when you were reading them?
I'm really bad at titles
Okay.
of some of the different stories,
Hmm.
but yeah, some of the things that go back to the earlier days of the Star Wars canon are some of the things
Hmm.
that I've really enjoyed learning about, and some of the things that have come out into the new shows where they've,
Yeah.
especially where they've come up with some of the newer things that have gone back 100 years. This latest show is very interesting to read about. You know, the history of the Jedi, and understanding how they came about to be and how long they've been around, and
Mhm.
how it wasn't always a perfect thing. It
Yes.
was always a very interesting thing to read about. So.
I personally loved The Acolyte. I'm
I did too. I thought it was great.
Loved it.
yes. Um, the High Republic actually like got me back into Star Wars, really. And like I just loved that era and them exploring it in The Acolyte. Did you both watch Skeleton Crew?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
that was incredible. I thought it was just so much fun, and those kids looked like they had a great time.
Yeah.
I just have to ask.
All the young actors were really good in that series.
And Jude Law was fantastic.
Yeah, he did a great job.
He looked like he was having a blast.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And just I love just the comedy from the kids as well. Like that was just so much fun. Uh I mean, a lot of people would say like their favorite Legends novels are Thrawn. I mean, and Thrawn is pretty important. Like Thrawn's important. And I've met Timothy Zahn. And I got to talk to him, and he's super nice. And I loved seeing Thrawn in Ahsoka and in Rebels as well. Like I thought it was great that they brought him into both of those. Yeah, I just had to ask because a lot of those books do run together at times.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, oh yeah, that one. Okay, like I don't remember half of them anyway, too. And especially with new canon now as well. Like there's so many books now like coming out.
Absolutely.
And yeah, like I'm still trying to get caught up on the High Republic, and I'm like 3 books behind because I've been reading.
They come out so fast.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I've been reading other stuff. Like I've been on a huge Brandon Sanderson kick over the last year, and
yes,
his stuff's great, but it's long.
Yeah,
it is long. So yeah. Anything else before we wrap this up? Like anybody have anything else?
No, we hope that everyone follows Eric's excellent example and comes to Farpoint.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And, definitely the schedule is imminently going to be published.
Yep.
Putting final tweaks on it, and definitely make use of our social media feeds and our online web application for everything scheduling and information about the con. It's actually at a very simple website to remember, myconschedule.com.
Yeah.
And we're just so appreciative that people are interested and wanting to come and wanting to come play with us and be part of our community.
Go ahead.
We get started at about 3:00. Opening ceremonies is at 7, and that's really a chance to just mingle and meet with folks. And it's a very casual, comforting. There'll be guests there. There'll be actors there. It'll be fun.
Yeah. And that's what to add on. A lot of people have said to us before, "Oh, I'm not going to eat at your opening ceremonies, so I can't come." And it's like, no. The food bar is there as an add-on for people who do want to come in and eat. But as soon as we open the door, if you're just coming in to visit with people or get a drink from the cash bar, you are welcome and appreciated. Because, we start off with the cocktail hour and some food, but then we move into the first live charity auction. And I will say that we will be auctioning off at least one meet and greet with one of our celebrities, because Bonnie Gordon has donated one. Nice. And Rob Kaczynski has promised us a donation. We don't know what it's going to be. and then of course we have this year we always have live entertainment at the end of the opening ceremonies. And so Friday at Farpoint is happening. So don't wait until Saturday to show up.
It's I will tell you that cocktail hour that you guys do, it was so much fun last year. Like we had such a great time. Demanda sat at our table last year, and we got to talk to Demanda.
One of my favorite people in the whole wide world. Absolutely.
She is hilarious. She was a lot of fun. My wife was just like, she's hilarious. I love her. Yes. She's great. But and she's getting the Contact Award, which I think is awesome because the amount of work she does for the fandom is just
it's amazing. And she's a across the board fan in general, but of course she has a lot of passion for X-Men. Which is it's amazing to see. She actually I think she goes to more X-Men conventions than she goes to Comic-Cons or other conventions. But she always says, well, Farpoint got me in the door, and I'll always come to Farpoint, for which we are very, very grateful. But she's just the most generous person in
Yes.
the world. And I do want to give a quick shout out to
Mhm.
her, because not only is she winning the Contact Award, a couple of years ago she won the Washington area theater community honor for in a supporting role as shoot, I'm drawing a blank. She played the aunt of, I can't remember the name of the character, but the aunt in the Importance of Being Earnest.
Cool.
And she won the award, and it was great to see her be recognized like that.
Yeah. I actually got to talk X-Men with her last year at Farpoint, and we were just geeking out over the Krakoa era that was just about to wrap up
Yeah.
in the comics, and it was just so much fun just to talk about it. And we both were just sharing our excitement for 97, especially
Mhm.
with Cal Dodd being there last year. And
Yeah, Royal knows as soon as he's like, as soon as we confirmed Amanda's coming, he knows he won't have to worry about X-Men content for the programs.
yes,
She
yes.
will, she will bring it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just want to thank you both for taking this time. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties that we had earlier.
No, it's great to talk to you.
It was
Yes.
really nice.
Yes. Farpoint's happening in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks' time. It's crazy. Which just real quick side note, you were Super Bowl weekend last year. You're Super Bowl weekend again this year. I think that's just really funny that you're doing it again.
Yeah, well, it comes down to you're always going to be on a weekend of something.
Yeah.
You can't avoid it anymore. And yes, and there's we do get a fair share of Super Bowl fans coming to Farpoint, but usually by Sunday evening, we're usually finishing up when the game itself actually starts. It's just the people who want to watch all the pregame stuff that starts at noon. They're the ones who are questioning their priorities, shall we say? But we do have a bar in the TV in the bar, so they're welcome to come and just hang out in the bar and watch.
They're booking an extra night at the hotel just to watch the Super Bowl in their
We
room.
had people do that.
That's fantastic. And now, real quick, are the hotel room blocks sold out for the convention? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
They are, but we do encourage people to keep checking, because there are changes when people change their mind or they realize they don't need two rooms. They can put everybody in one, and they will release rooms.
Mhm.
And so please keep checking. And we do have on the website a list of other area hotels that have good ratings and are close by. The parking at the DoubleTree is free, so it's and the other hotels I believe is also free. So coming back and forth is a matter of, unfortunately, having to drive a couple of miles to get back to join us. And so yeah, if we could build on another wing to the DoubleTree Hotel, we would happily do it, but they won't let us.
Just the Farpoint wing. That's it. It's
The
just
financing might be a bit of an issue too.
yeah. Well, that's it. Royal, Sharon, thank you once again
Thank you.
for this. This was a lot of fun. It was great to talk to you all about Farpoint and your passions and everything. So thank you so much. That's it for us. This will be dropping this week, so stay tuned. We're going to have this on YouTube as well as audio, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, we will see you in 2 weeks at Farpoint. Until then, we'll
Absolutely.
see you later.
Yes, indeed. Bye,
Bye.
guys. Thanks.
Bye now.
Bye. And